Hello friends, TechManPat here. Today, I want to talk to you about the cost of owning an electric vehicle in Western Australia. I'm going to put together a couple of slides and I'm going to piss off two groups of people. People who love EVs and think they're the greatest thing ever, and people who hate EVs because they think it's the worst thing ever. So let's get started. You're going to love it. We're going to go through the costs of purchasing one, then owning it and maintenance, and of course the cost of running it. And in the end, we'll see if it's value for money, but if my personal experience has gotten me a return of investment. Technically, no. If you think a car is an investment, it's not. But is my ongoing cost lower and am I saving money on fuel? Let's find out by rolling the intro. You're gonna love this. We've got slides for days, so let's jump in. The cost of owning an electric vehicle. I don't have that many slides, so it's not gonna be one of those things where you're gonna see lots of words and I'm gonna read them out, but there is gonna be a few things that I need to read out. First of all, there's some assumptions we're going to go through and the context behind it. We're going to talk about the vehicle price and current incentives that might probably be out of date by the time we do this. Talking about charging your electric vehicle, the ongoing costs and the maintenance, obviously the costs in regards to fuel and the efficiency of vehicles. And I'm going to share you some truths about how many kilometers you can get out of a car that is electric, and of course, some final thoughts. So the assumptions that I've made is this is based on my Tesla Model Y. It's a 2024 model. It was purchased out of the inventory, which means they got a discount because it's an older model. It's the Hardware 3 model instead of the Hardware 4 or AI4. I predominantly work from home, which means I can charge during the day where there is solar. But truth be told, if you hear somebody say, I'm charging with solar, some doubts on that, and I'll get to that in a second. My home has 3-phase power and I can park my car on the driveway. What I mean by that is I have enough space to put the car and have it in front of my car, and I don't need to park it on the street. Now, in my opinion, an EV is not for you if you travel more than 350 kilometers one way every day. Like, it's just not going to work out very well. And of course, there's not a lot of those people. And it is not good for you if you want to tow. Like, you get much reduced range. Like, it can tow, but it's not really for towing. And the EV is not for you if you cannot charge at home. The biggest value of an electric vehicle and the way where you actually see good returns on your fuel savings is if you can charge at home. We'll talk about more of the specifics there in a moment. Now, for me, I replaced a Toyota Land Cruiser Prado 2012 with a Model Y, which is an EV SUV. My fuel savings are going to be much greater than those where you are comparing it to a standard car, so I've decided to compare it to a Volkswagen Tiguan 2012 diesel turbo SUV, and that car has a 7.6 litre efficiency per 100 kilometers. Now, all of these breakdowns are in Australian dollars, of course, and kilometers. Now, depending on which EV you choose, it depends on the range, but generally speaking, Tesla's range is one of the best. So the Tesla Model Y was purchased for $59,539.60, including the government on-road charges. That is drive away straight from Tesla. On top of that, Western Australia provides a zero emissions vehicle rebate, which was $3,500, making the final price $56,039.60. Now, obviously, I sold a previous car, so I didn't actually fork out that full amount here, but the Model Y had a discount of $1,200 because not only was it white, so it was the cheapest color there is, but it was also an older model, which was brand new, only 37 kilometers on the clock, but still it was cheaper from it. I also had to purchase a home charger, which I spent $1,500 installing. We'll talk about that in a second. And I bought about $800 worth of accessories such as wheel covers, mats inside, and so on. So look, those costs, I would say you probably buy them on any car. So it's not exclusive to an electric vehicle aside from the home charger, of course. What are the ongoing costs for an electric vehicle apart from charging? Well, there is insurance. My insurance for the Prado was $447 less than this car. So I pay $1,491.69 per year. There is a discount for paying every year, and it went up. It went up substantially. I'll put it a monthly price in a moment. Now, there is a Tesla connectivity subscription, which is about $10 a month. It gives you basically internet within your car. I use it, so I'm adding it here, but you don't have to. But if you own the car, you might as well. It is another cost that you have to bear. But it is on the Telstra network, which is actually really good. Of course, registration, just like any other car, is exactly the same. There is no rebate. For maintenance cost, you'd be surprised how many things you have to maintain on your electric vehicle. The thing to note here is that it's less often and less of. So there is a tire replacement and roughly around 40,000 kilometers or earlier, depending on your driving style. 4 EV specific tires are around 2,000 Australian dollars. And I got this quote from Tire Sales, and I chose a premium type of tire, not the cheapest, which was only like a couple of $100 less. And it's like owning an Audi is what I found. Most of the same tires for those sort of sporty cars are at that $2,000 or $500 a pop. Not much difference between my Prado wheels and these wheels. They have some sound dampening inside the tire to make the noise of the car lower. So it's not cheap, but only every 40,000 kilometers. Tire rotation says to be done every 10,000 kilometers. That ranges between $30 to $75, depending where you go. And it's not really a service. It's just the way the tire wears out. You want it to be basically equal around. Windshield fluid, you can either just put water, which is kind of terrible, or you can buy some specific stuff or make your own. So $0 to $30, and whenever it runs out there, I think there's about 3 liters in there. A HEPA filter and a carbon filter every 3 years, and that's $90 directly from Tesla. And then a cabin air filter every 2 years, and that's $26. Now, there are some other considerations. There is an oil filter in the car. Surprisingly, I don't know if people know this, but there is an oil filter for the oil inside the gears that move the car, inside the motor. There is oil. The thing is, Tesla says you never have to change it. Some people have said change the filter every 100,000 kilometers. It's a standard Ryco filter. It's like $20. There's also a brake fluid check you need to do every 4 years and brake caliper lubrication every 20,000 kilometers. However, only when you're driving around salted roads where there is snow, and other than that, not really relevant for Australia. There's an AC discount bag replacement that you can do yourself every 4 years, and there's some parts that you need to buy, but I wasn't able to actually dig up the cost of that for Australia. Let's talk charging infrastructure for the home. There's a couple of pictures of my home getting installed. I bought the charger for $800 from Tesla. It arrived actually from Amazon, but via the Tesla store. And it's a level 2 charger. I plug it in and it has up to 22 kilowatts of power, which means that for a Tesla Model 3 and Y, which can only accept 11.6 kilowatts, it can charge 75 kilometers per hour. The level 1 mobile plug, which is 550 Australian dollars, charges 15 kilometers per hour and plugs into your standard wall wart. Now, you can also get a 15 amp adapter inside the pack, which charges a little bit faster. And level 3 is a supercharger that can charge up to 282 kilometers in 15 minutes. It's the 0 to 80% one. And we'll talk about the costs of that in a moment. I like to think you charge your car like you charge your phone. The batteries are very good in the Teslas. They're LFP batteries and they'll last a long time. They'll outlast the car. No matter what people say, they have so far. Now, the installation really depends. I've had quotes from about $3,500 to a lot less. I paid $300 to get this installed because all it is in reality is running that orange cable through the roof to your meter box, putting a switch in there, and of course a little switch here. And obviously the names are not the right names, but they're called an isolator there and a bit of a pipe. So if you can run the plastic pipes yourself and then get the electrician just push the cable through, it's going to cost you a lot less time. I paid around $350 to get that installed, but the parts were about another $500 odd. So altogether, $1,500-ish to install this wall charger, and that is one of the cheapest ones you can do. Of course, this means level 2 charging. So fuel efficiency and electricity efficiency for both vehicles. We're comparing this to a Volkswagen Tiguan 2012. It is rated 6.2 for 100 Ks, but In reality, obviously, and after a few years, it's only 7.6 every 100 kilometers. The tank is about 64 liters and gets around 800 kilometers depending on the way you drive. You could put your foot down and really smash it, and obviously that range will reduce. But when you're driving, hours on end, that range will increase because you're just sipping that fuel. So similarly to a Tesla Model Y, your range depends on your personal driving. Now, they rate it to 430. Not the reality, and I'm sure a lot of people will tell you that is definitely not the case. It's about 80 to 90% of the WLTP range. Personally, it's been around 350, 346 range that I've been getting. And that is about a petrol equivalent of 17.28 liters per 100 kilometers. And if you look at the battery size is about 60.5 kilowatts, and that is kind of like your tank size, right? So at the end of the day, the Tesla is almost, well, actually much less than half the range of the Tiguan. But the thing you have to remember is you have to go somewhere to fill up your Tiguan, but you charge at home. So you're not going to be waiting until you're low to charge. You might get to 30%, 40% charge, and you just plug it in when you're home. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So in regards to the cost per kilometer for both a Tiguan, my Prado, and a Model Y. If we look at the Tiguan, because it's an efficiency of 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers, we get a cost of 14 cents per kilometer. On the Prado, it's a little bit more, but it's also a diesel car. It's also very fuel efficient, and in long ranges, it's very fuel efficient. If you're running it around town, it's not. I averaged around 20 cents per kilometer for the Toyota Prado. So let's talk about the Tesla Model Y, because there is a little bit more dots right here. If you're in Western Australia, your power provider is Synergy. They have an A1 home tariff that charges 32 cents per kilowatt. Now, I had a little start in a couple of slides earlier, and you lose about 10% of charge when you're charging your vehicle. I haven't accounted for this because it accounts for it in another way. But basically, when you charge, let's say 60 kilowatt battery, you're using about 10% more, so maybe 66 kilowatts to actually charge. There's a bit of a loss of power in charging that vehicle. But these are the cents per kilometer at the current prices per kilowatt. So Synergy charges 32 cents per kilowatt, and that means that if I travel in that car, I pay 6 cents per kilometer. However, there is an EV specific plan from Synergy that allows off-peak charging in the middle of the day, where the cost per kilowatt is 9 cents, meaning that it costs me 2 cents to travel per kilometer using that tariff, using that moment to charge my vehicle. Overnight, it's 18 cents, which means it's 4 cents per kilometer. And of course, if you go to a Tesla supercharger, they charge around 56, 53 cents per kilowatt, and that ends up being 9 cents per kilometer. Now, if you kind of look at that, 14 cents to 9 cents, not a big difference. And it only really adds up if you're driving a lot per month. Not long distances, because you have to remember, you can't go that big of a distance with your Tesla car. So in regards to that, the Tiguan takes at $110 to fill up the full tank. So it's $1.85 per liter, and you get that 800 range. If I were to fill up my Tesla and have my Synergy 32 cents pay for it, it would be about $40 to get the same distance, but I'd have to charge in between, so an extra charge, obviously. If I use my off-peak tariff of 9 cents per kilowatt, it's about $11 to fully fill the car to the same range that you get on the Tiguan, or roughly it'd be. Now, the Model Y replaced my Toyota Prado, and on average, I did about 1,200 kilometers per month. Each time I filled up my Prado, it cost me 240 Australian dollars at $1.85 diesel. Now, that diesel has been $2.50 in the past, so that varies significantly in regards to the price. Today, on the off-peak tariff, I fill up my car per month for $24 to travel the exact same amount of kilometers. If I do that with the Volkswagen Tiguan, it costs me about $168 per month. So there is a significant saving from the Prado, but not a significant saving from the Tiguan. So let's put that into perspective with all the other costs. The Prado fuel savings is $240. My Model Y fuel costs are only $24. So I'm saving that $240 and I've put it in the credit table. My insurance used to be $87 for the Prado. Now it's $124 per month. There's also premium connectivity there at $10. So my savings of how much I was spending before is $327, but now I'm only spending $148 per month. I'm $169 better off per month, which ends up being $2,028 annually instead of owning a Toyota Prado. Now, obviously, the comments will be, yes, but you can tow with the Prado. I wasn't towing. Yes, you can go long distances with the Prado. I'm not going long distances. That vehicle wasn't the right vehicle for me, and I swapped it out. So let's be clear on that. That's why I did it. Now, this is the but, because this is probably the part that a lot of people will compare to. And I think this is the part where it doesn't work out that great for a Tesla Model Y. Because at the end of the day, you're paying more for the vehicle. You're buying a very expensive vehicle and you're not going to be saving that much. So the Tiguan is costing me $168 per month to run. The insurance is about $60. And of course, we look at it on the other side, the Tesla's costing me $124 and $10 per month. I'm only saving $80 per month to buy a $59,000 car, which ends up being $960 annually. Do I need to make a comment that I have to hold my child because she just woke up and I am by myself at home? Okay. So we've got the cost of a vehicle that got a similar efficiency. It's not that much better off, $80. So people who say that, oh, get an electric vehicle, you're going to save so much. I just don't think that's the case based on a very efficient diesel vehicle. If you've got a petrol vehicle that's potentially not getting as much, kilometers per liter, then yes, maybe you'll save more. But the best comparison is to a Prado, but it's not a Prado. So when you compare it to a very efficient diesel vehicle, yeah, not that big of a difference. And let's talk about solar charging, because the excuse here is that you're not going to pay for energy at all. It's the solar that's paying for it. And EV enthusiasts really talk about how free it is. But in reality, from my testing, only 28% of the power that filled up my car came from the solar. That's why I didn't account for that 10% power lossage, because a lot of it was coming from solar. So we could reduce the cost by about 10% again, but it's again not a big difference, and I think my calculations still stand. Now, this does not work for people who are not at home with the car during the day, because when the sun is up, and you can see here at around 11 a.m., that's the highest peak of how much output your solar system can put out. Now, if you plug your car in at around 9 a.m., a certain percentage will come from solar and the rest from the grid, and then obviously as it increases, more of it will come from solar than the grid. Your vehicle charges at a very large speed, at 11 kilowatts if you've got a level 2 charger at home. And so how are you going to control it? Well, there is an application that can control it, but then that means that it will only charge at the amount of kilowatts that are coming from your solar, but it's going to take a lot longer to charge your vehicle just from solar. And so you're giving up speed of charging just to have solar coming through. And yes, the application here, Charge HQ, can actually do it. You pay $7 a month and it'll control your Tesla to only draw the amount of solar coming from your solar panels. And I tested that. I did that at first, and I didn't find the speed of charge as satisfying as just plugging it in. And so a time of day tariff is the best way, because you've got solar generation happening all around you, and you plug in and you're only getting charged 7 cents or 8 cents, whatever it is. That's my thought. You're not really always going to be charging from solar. Now, there is a slight but here, is if you have giant panels that are providing more kilowatts, but then, the limit in Australia is 6.6 kilowatt inverter. So there's that. So time of day rates is the best way to help the grid and also utilize the cheapest power, because during the day there is an abundance of power and the price dips significantly to the point that you might actually be paid to take the power off the grid to not damage the grid. So if all people either charge their vehicles during the middle of the day or at night, then we'd have a pretty good grid. You don't actually need to change anything about the grid to achieve this. Now, I know a lot of people won't be able to achieve that during the day, but that doesn't mean you can't take your car to work and charge it off solar on public services where there's, let's say, a light post. Council can put a charger on a light post and use it there because the power is there. So it can be managed. It's possible. So after 10 years, I will save 20,280 if I obviously compare it to the Toyota Prado, and against the equivalent size vehicle of a Tesla Model Y, let's say that Volkswagen Tiguan, I'll only be better off 9,600. Now, if somebody said to you in 10 years, I'll give you 10 grand, I don't think anybody's going to say no, but just remember that you're also forking out more for the car. So the petrol savings aren't going to pay back for the car per se, but if you had a very, I guess, expensive car beforehand, you traded it in, the difference in how much you pay for the electric vehicle will. So that's the point I'm making. If you have a current vehicle and you trade it in and you get a significant amount off your EV, then that is a winning combination. If you're buying an electric vehicle straight off the bat, don't expect it to pay off, not like anybody else expects their vehicle to pay themselves off. After all, it's not an investment and you shouldn't expect it. So when people say it's going to save you lots of money, it's not the case. But if you trade in a vehicle and you swap out to an EV, you're going to be saving money every month compared to what you were spending before.
What you'll notice is that insurance is the thing that really slogs you, and insurance premiums don't really go down. And in fact, it'll be many, many years before insurance premiums get to a point of ICE vehicles. The reality is that you have to take into account the insurance on your vehicle when counting running costs.
So here's the thing. An annual service cost for a petrol vehicle is about $500 plus. There's extra costs there. There's petrol and energy price fluctuations across both sides, so that doesn't really change much. There is obviously a lot more parts in a petrol vehicle that needs replacements and maintenance. Yes, I know Toyota has been in the past good on their reliability, but that has changed drastically. Toyotas aren't necessarily the most reliable vehicles in 2024. There is less maintenance on an electric vehicle. There's less moving parts, less can go wrong. Yes, there's all this big fear about a battery failing, but you've got 8 years warranty on those in a Tesla. So lots of warranties, obviously, but after 8 years, then you start to question things. But the cost of a battery will always calm down. I mean, look around. There's so many lithium mines basically collapsing, and not physically, but because the price is so low, batteries are getting cheaper, and they're only going to get cheaper. Now, vehicle depreciation, a lot of people talk about this. Look, it happens with cars. As soon as you drive off the lot, the price goes down. I think people were just so surprised how quickly electric vehicles went down in price because there's so many new ones being pumped out so often, and everybody wants the greatest one, the newest one. And of course, is a EV great buy for as a second-hand vehicle? I actually think it is, because you can get them quite a lot cheaper now, and of course you're going to get them a lot cheaper a lot later. So what you'll see is a lot more people buying second-hand electric vehicles for a lot less and then saving the same amount of, I guess, petrol money when they use that vehicle. So to EV enthusiasts, the real cost of a electric vehicle in regards to petrol savings, yes, there's savings, but also it's not that much more than a very efficient vehicle. But driving an electric vehicle is so much better, and the experience of a good electric vehicle is fantastic. Secondly, charging at home is very convenient. I never have to go to a petrol station again. I don't have to smell those fumes. I don't have to deal with lines. I charge at home, and that is a huge benefit. I save time because I don't have to drive out somewhere and get it. There is much more power plugs in around the world than there is petrol stations. That's just the reality of it. There's a lot more light posts than there is petrol stations too. So if councils start putting in chargers in those areas onto those, I guess, light posts, then you got yourself an already existing infrastructure that can work really, really well during the day when there's peak, I guess, solar generation from all those homes out there. Friends, thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments and thoughts below. I hope this has been a very factual and unbiased view of the costs. I guess I'm happy because I'm going from a Prado to an EV, and again, the Prado wasn't the right vehicle for my family or for me, and I still have a Tiguan anyway that I use every so often to do things like tow. It's got a tow bar. So that's that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you all in another one. Bye.